Greetings to everyone. So for today's presentation, me, Chu Doshun, and Zachary, my partner, is going to present a video about necrosis. So this assignment is for our pathology class. So let's move on to the first section. In this section, it shows a young man named CJ is having trouble for his pathology exam. But then, the exam is about the topic necrosis. CJ understood what is necrosis, but he had forgotten the types of necrosis. So then, CJ will start off by explaining what is necrosis. He wanted to explain what is necrosis to himself to make sure that he understood what is necrosis before he called his friend Zach to further elaborate what are the types of necrosis. CJ started to introduce what is necrosis. So he started with cell death. Cell death is a state of irreversible injury that may occur in the living body as a local or focal change, for example, autolysis, necrosis, and apoptosis. And the changes that follow it are as gangrene or pathological calcification, or result at the end of the life, which is a somatic death. And then CJ moved on to what is necrosis. So he explained that necrosis is defined as a localized area of death of tissue followed by the degradation of the tissue by hydrolytic enzymes liberated from the dead cells. It is invariably accompanied by inflammatory reactions, which are called inflammations. Not only that, CJ also listed out the cause of necrosis. It can be such as hypoxia, chemical and physical agents, microbial agents, immunological injury, and etc. So there are two essential changes that characterize the irreversible cell injury in the necrosis of all types. First is by the cell dilation by the lytic enzyme, and the second is the denaturation of proteins. After the introduction, CJ proceeded to call Zach. Good morning, Zach. I'm CJ. I'm looking for help. I wish that you can provide me some ideas or some explanation on the type of necrosis, because I had forgotten what the lecturer said during our lecture.
Hello CJ. For necrosis, there are around 5 types that we can know about. They are coagulative necrosis, liquefaction necrosis, caseous necrosis, fat necrosis, and finally is fibrinoid necrosis. These are the types of necrosis that are quite important to be known. Let's get into the first one, which is coagulative necrosis. This is the most common type of necrosis, which is caused by irreversible focal injury, where mostly it is caused from sudden cessation of blood flow, which is known as ischemia, and less often from bacterial and chemical agents. So therefore, bacterial and chemical agents are not really the key of coagulative necrosis. There are also certain types of organs which are commonly affected, which will be the heart, the kidney, and the spleen. For example, in kidney, there will be a wedge-shaped pale area of a coagulative necrosis, which is also known as infarction. So this wedge-shaped pale area will happen in the cortex of the kidney. So this is the first type of necrosis. Moving on to the second type of necrosis, which is the liquefaction necrosis, or we can call it as colliquative necrosis. It is known to have the softening of the necrotic tissue, where it will transform into a paste-like mush or watery debris. It also occurs commonly due to ischemic injury or bacterial or even fungal infection. This liquefaction necrosis occurs due to degradation of tissues by the action of powerful hydrolytic enzymes. So these hydrolytic enzymes will be the cause of liquefaction necrosis. And the common examples will be in the brain, where infarct brain will take place, and also abscess cavity. Moving on to the third type of necrosis, which is the caseous necrosis. Caseous necrosis is a type of solid necrosis which is found in the center of the foci of tuberculosis infection. This caseous necrosis is also known to have the combination of features of both coagulative and liquefactive necrosis, because its appearance can be a cheesy-like figure and also a color like cheesy tan to white color. And it is stated to be a type of tissue death where the cellular outline is lost or missing, and the appearances of the caseous necrosis is crumbly and cheese-like. So this can be clearly seen in tuberculosis infection. Well, you are 100% right about fat necrosis, CJ, and also the description about fat necrosis. As for the final necrosis that we are about to see is the fibrinoid necrosis. Fibrinoid necrosis is characterized by the deposition of fibrin-like materials which has the staining properties of fibrin. Basically, fibrinoid necrosis is a specific pattern of irreversible and uncontrolled cell death. It is also encountered in numerous examples of immunological tissue injuries, such as in immune complex vasculitis, autoimmune diseases, as well as arthritis reaction. Not only that, it also occurs in the arterioles in hypertension, as well as peptic ulcers. In this fibrinoid necrosis, there are also some symptoms to look out for, such as nosebleeds, bleedings of gums, blood in the stool and as well as in the urine, and bruises in muscles. So these are some symptoms that are physically noticeable because it involves bleeding, which then causes fibrinoid necrosis. So well, CJ, I hope this explanation helped you to remember the types of necrosis and how the information about the necrosis happens.
But CJ remembered that there were 5 types of necrosis. So he just assumed that Zach had missed out the last one. So CJ had started his own research on the last necrosis, which is fat necrosis. Fat necrosis is a special form of cell death, and it appears two anatomically different locations but morphologically similar lesions. So these are the following acute necrosis, such as pancreatic necrosis, traumatic fat necrosis, which are commonly found in breast, which can be seen as shown in the picture below. So fat necrosis hydrolyzes neutral fat present in the adipose cells into glycerol and free amino acid. The damaged adipose cells assume a cloudy appearance. The leak out free fatty acids complex with calcium to form. So for this, we will conclude our video for the introduction to necrosis and the types of necrosis and how they are formed. So thank you for watching and have a nice day.